Hello, my lovelies. I hope I'm recording. Right, this tale is called The Dragon's Tale. In Germany, there is a little town called Eisenach. And in Eisenach, there lived a brave boy named Helmut. He loved stories about knights and heroes of old and imagined himself to be a mighty warrior. Helmut didn't look like one, though, being a skinny lad, but he liked nothing better than putting on his helmet, strapping on his wooden sword, and leading his friends, Felix and Werner, on quests into the forest. However, one summer's day, during the school holidays, Helmut had a special adventure. They would venture into a narrow chasm outside the town called the Dragon Gorge. Now, a chasm, that's kind of where you get two mountains side by side with these rocks and you can go through it. And it's got tall rocks on either side. It's a bit like a funny hallway. So he decided that they would go to this chasm called the Dragon Gorge and find the beast that was said to lurk there. "Bring your toy guns," Helmut said, "and some lunch as well. Who knows how long it may take us to find that scaly serpent." So the next day, Warner and Felix reported for duty, armed with their toy guns and wearing saucepan helmets on their heads. They look quite good. Can you see their saucepan helmets? They look great. Helmut was impressed, but he was less impressed by the fact that Werner had brought along his little brother, Florian. He was only 6 and always had a runny nose. "My mum said we had to take him along too," shrugged Werner. When the boys reached the entrance to Dragon Gorge, Helmut felt a little bit nervous. The rocky walls were very high. The path between them was very narrow, and the green leaves of the beech trees nearly blocked out the summer sun altogether. However, he decided that it was his duty to be the brave leader. Pulling his wooden sword from his belt, he waved it bravely and declared, "Forward, my men! The dragon awaits!" He set off into the narrow chasm, with the rest following close behind him. The gorge was like a maze of mossy boulders. Do you know what moss is? Have you ever seen that green furry stuff that you see on trees and bark? And on stones as well. That's what moss is. So this gorge was a maze of mossy boulders, and boulders are big stones. And the sound of running water echoed between the rocky walls. Werner whispered loudly, "Do you hear that?" "It's too loud to be just a stream," Felix whispered back. "I bet it's the sound of that dragon." Oh, I'd be too scared to go looking for a dragon myself. After spending all morning walking through the mossy maze of the gorge, the boys had found no sign of any mythical monster. At midday, they stopped and ate their bread and sausages and oranges. Werner was going to stuff his orange peels and bread crusts into a crack in the rocks, but Helmut stopped him. "Real heroes don't litter, Werner. We have to take our rubbish out home with us." Well, that's a very good point. After lunch, they ventured even deeper into the gorge, where the trees and the high cliff walls made it as dark as twilight, even at midday. The gorge got narrower, with the boys having to sometimes squeeze through one at a time, and they were all getting a little bit nervous. This had been a fun adventure in the early morning, but now they were feeling chilly and scared, and their home seemed to be a long way away. Then, rounding a corner, Helmut spotted something strange on the ground. A red-orange thing that looked like a tail of a big worm sticking round the corner. He whispered to Felix, who was following behind him. "What do you think that is, Felix? It looks like a dragon's tail." Felix peered at the strange object in the gloom. "It looks more like the tail of a big snake or something like that to me," he said doubtfully. Helmet decided he hadn't come this far to give up now. He tried to grab hold of the thing with both hands, only for it to slip out and whip away around the corner. Well, Helmet charged after it through the narrow rocky gorge, but every time he was about to catch it, it disappeared around another bend. Finally, Helmet stumbled into a dark, open area of the gorge, followed by Werner and Felix and little Florian. There he saw the tail and the monstrous beast that it was attached to. The four boys found themselves face to face with a beast larger than the largest horse, with a tail dozens of feet long. Its body was covered with great red scales, and its crocodile-like head had eyes like great glowing lanterns, and a mouth filled with long, yellowed fangs. Well, I would have started running immediately had I met that. The dragon looked just as surprised as they were, and scrambled to get away. Without even thinking about it, Helmet gave out a mighty yell and leapt onto the beast's back, holding on like a rodeo rider. Well, Felix and Werner followed him, grabbing onto the tail and holding on for dear life. Can we see them? Here they are. They're holding on for dear life on the back of this dragon. Gosh, they're very brave. I wouldn't be holding on. I would have ran away. Little Florian, however, was too scared, like me. Before the dragon carried them down the gorge, they saw Florian standing alone and crying, with snot running out of his little nose. The dragon took them on a wild ride through the rocky chasm as the beast whipped through it at great pace, and their tin helmets dinged and danged as they were knocked against the walls. Finally, the panicked dragon plunged into a hidden cave in the gorge walls. Sorry, my darlings. The boys fell off and tumbled onto the damp sand of the cave floor. However, Helmet, Werner and Felix kept their nerve and fired their toy guns. The darts did nothing to the dragon, but the noise did frighten it. It began crying, and hot tears splashed from its great glowing eyes onto the sandy cave floor. "What have I done to you, young knights? Why do you threaten me so?" he said in a quavering voice. This took Helmet by surprise, but he remembered his manners. "What's the matter, Mr. Dragon?" The dragon kept crying. "Why, I am an anachronism." Now that's a long word, anachronism. Do you know, that means that something is out of place somewhere. It's out of time, a bit like, say, taking swords and armour to a modern warfare, where you have guns instead. "Do you know I am a beast from another time?" That's an anachronistic. That's why he's an anachronism. Even I can't say the word. "You clever humans now rule the world with your cunning machines, while I am stuck here in this miserable gorge, forced to feed on the litter you humans leave behind." At this, Helmet and his friends began to feel a bit embarrassed. This was not how mighty mythical beasts were supposed to behave. The dragon then began pleading with them. "Please do not betray me, young sirs. If you tell others about me, they will lock me up in a zoo where I will be poked and laughed at by children." Helmet decided that enough was enough. He took an orange out of his bag and held it out to the dragon. "See here, Mr. Dragon, we're terribly sorry you're so miserable, and you've given us a great ride through the gorge, so we promise not to tell anyone about you. And I'd like you to have this tasty orange. It's much nicer than garbage." He tossed the orange to the dragon, who caught it in his jagged teeth, squashed it with his mighty jaws, and swallowed the juicy pulp with relish. His great eyes brightened like glowing lanterns, and he licked his lips with a red pointed tongue. There's his red pointed tongue. Can you see? So tasty and juicy. The dragon suddenly seemed less weak and more dangerous than just a moment before, and Helmut and his friends stepped back nervously. Almost as juicy as my favourite food from centuries past. Tasty little children. The dragon began to move towards them, its scales scraping against each other. Helmut gripped his sword as he looked into the dragon's eyes, but he knew that the dragon was very big and his weapon was only made of wood. Boys! Boys! Where are you? Helmut and Felix and Florian recognised the voice of Werner's mum, calling from outside the cave. Close escape, this. Surprised by this interruption, the dragon let out a great cloud of grey smoke from its nostrils and disappeared. When the boys scrambled out of the cave, bruised and dirty, they found Werner's mother waiting for them. She was wiping little Florian's nose. What did you boys think you were doing? Running off and leaving Florian all alone. He ran back home and told us you were lost in the gorge. What were you doing in that cave? Helmut looked at Werner and Felix. He knew they couldn't tell. She would never believe them about the dragon, so they might as well keep quiet, which is what they did. Well, they were very brave to go and find the dragon. But yes, the dragon was wild. Seemed very friendly at first, till he'd had a bit more food, hey? Till next time, my lovelies. Bye for now.